Hey everyone, this is part 2 of our Building with Claude API series. And in this video, we'll see how we can start setting up a AI assistant for a VFX supervisor in our VFX or animation studio. All right. In the previous video, we saw how in order to have a multi-turn chat, we would have to ourselves maintain the chat history and provide it to our Anthropic client every time we want to generate a relevant response. Now, doing all of this by hand might become a bit tedious, especially when we are building a real world application. So that's why in this video, we have a utility method. I just basically set this up such that we can just call this chat method anytime we want to chat with the AI, and that will in turn take care of maintaining the history for us. So basically we are doing that by means of having this variable called messages, which is essentially a list, and every time you give a user prompt, that gets appended to that list with the role of a user, and then that list of messages is what we give as the input to the client, right? And whatever response comes out of the client, we append it again to that same messages list with the role of assistant. The user input comes in, that gets added to this list. We use that list to generate the response, and whatever response came out, we just get that text alone and again add it with the role of assistant to that same messages list. This essentially automates the process of maintaining the chat history for us. You could, in a real world scenario, use some sort of a database to hold this chat history. For this example, we're just using a list. Now, one additional thing that I added is this print mechanism. It basically, every time you chat with the AI, it will loop through all the messages and give us a visual indication of what exactly is being held in this list. So you will have that entire history printed out after every chat. Okay, so that's basically what we have set up here. Now let's see it in action. Here we have a prompt. What is the capital of France? Okay, I'll run this and we can see the user's prompt is what is the capital of France, and then the assistant generated the capital of France is Paris. Okay, so that's pretty cool. So we have a generated response from the AI assistant just by means of using this. And the cool thing is we can ask follow-up questions to it, right? So now we can say, what are the famous sightseeing options over there? We have added a follow-up question to whatever the AI had responded. For the LLM to respond to this question, it needs to have context on whatever response it had given before, right? Namely Paris. So let's see if this works now. And there you have it. We can see the complete history. Initially, we had asked, what is the capital of France? The AI assistant said the capital of France is Paris. And then we asked, what are the famous sightseeing options over there? And here it provides the answers as well. And it was able to generate the famous sightseeing options in Paris because it has the context. That's basically the utility of this helper method. Now, let's bring a bit of character to our AI assistant. Okay, so here it is just a generic AI assistant, very similar to the one we use in the web interface. What if we want to make this a AI assistant of a VFX supervisor in our VFX or animation studio? We can do that by means of creating a system prompt. In this create method, along with the model, max tokens and messages, we can also provide an additional parameter, which is system. And here we can provide a system prompt which would be used by the LLM to understand its characterization and what it needs to do from a global system standpoint. Here is a system prompt that I have created that will essentially start making this AI assistant behave as a VFX AI assistant. Okay, so basically the prompt is this: you are an AI assistant to a VFX supervisor for a show called Big Buck Bunny. And the name of the VFX supervisor is Ben Adam. It's just a fictitious name that I came up with. And the show is an animated movie rendered at 24 FPS. A bit of detail on the show. And an important prompt that I have added here is you only respond to questions about the show and VFX. And this prompt helps us to narrow down the scope of response it is supposed to give. Because as an assistant to a VFX supervisor on a show, we don't want our AI assistant to let us know what is the capital of France or give us some other general knowledge information, right? So that's not the purpose for which we are setting this up. I purposefully added this prompt saying you only respond to questions about the show and the VFX work. And for any prompt that is not related, I've just said you should politely decline by concisely stating your purpose and who you are. All right, so that's basically my prompt. Okay, and by feeding in this system prompt over here, if we now make use of this AI assistant, it will have that characterization, that flavoring. All right, to test it out, let's run these two cells and see what the AI assistant is going to respond when we ask it for what is the capital of France. Because here we have flavored the assistant to be a VFX supervisor's assistant, right? So let's run this. And here you have it. Because of this system prompt that we had added, here you can see when we ask what is the capital of France, it clearly responds by saying, I appreciate your question, but I am the AI assistant to Ben Adam, the VFX supervisor for Big Buck Bunny. And I am here to help with questions about the show and its visual effects work, right? So it clearly draws the line as to what it can help with and what it cannot, right? So that's pretty cool. Okay, let's then ask a question about the show. So we can say, what is the frame rate of this show? Okay, so if we ask this here, it actually gives us a response. See, for our initial prompt, it says, I cannot respond to that because I am a VFX supervisor's assistant. But when we ask about the show, it actually responds by saying Big Buck Bunny is rendered at 24 FPS frames per second, which is a standard frame rate for cinema and animated films. By means of introducing the system prompt, we can start giving a bit of character and flavoring to our AI assistants. For us to actually set this up to be a true VFX supervisor's AI assistant, we obviously would need to set up additional mechanisms such as RAG and connect it to different data sources so that it actually has comprehensive understanding about the show and all the different review notes that the VFX supervisor has given, the different preferences that she has, and so on. But to get started, right, just by introducing a simple system prompt, we can start flavoring our AI assistant. In the following videos, we'll dive deeper and explore all the different ways in which we could make use of this Claude API to build much more useful and interesting functionalities for creative workflows. Follow along if you're exploring AI for your VFX and animation pipelines.